Hey everybody, this is just a really quick tutorial on using the information supplied if you choose to revise one of your 100-point essays. That's my cat, Coco. Coco and I need to tell you that for this class, you have the option to revise any of the 100-point essays. Obviously, the argument essay is not included in that because it's not due till the end of the semester, but you will be able to revise the narrative, the concept essay, the comparison contrast, or the cause and effect. When you are revising, you can choose to revise any or all of them. You can choose to not revise at all. It is something I always encourage students to actually take part in, obviously, if you're looking for a certain grade in the class. But it's also something that if you're happy with the grades that you've gotten, you don't really want to put any more work into it, that's also completely fine. One thing I do want you to be aware of is that your grade cannot go down. The worst that can possibly happen is that you stay at the exact same grade that you originally got. So if you got a 75 is the worst that you can do, even after the revision. I've never graded an essay that actually went down in points, so I've never had that happen. But I do know that sometimes students worry about it. That should not be something that would keep you from revising. So the section here in the week 15 module will walk you through the steps that you want to take to revise your essay. And just this front page talks about the revision option itself, but also notes at the bottom that even professional writers go through many different drafts. And Wordsworth, who was a very famous British poet, was known to revise his poetry even after it had been published. So he was never at a point where he thought that it was done. He knew he could keep making it better, which he did up until the time that he passed away. Now, I don't expect you to do that with an English 1101 essay, but if you would like to improve the grade, if you would like to improve your writing, here's some of the things that you want to take a look at. So in the week 15 module, you'll also find a step-by-step guide. You want to start, however, with that grading scale. So when you got your essay, it's going to have that breakdown of the grade from content, organization, then there's language choice, then there's mechanics and MLA, grammar kind of stuff. So what you want to do is determine which one of those do you want to really work on, or do you want to work on all of them? So take a look at that score first. If you scored lower than a 4, I would highly recommend that that is a portion of the essay that you really concentrate on. If you scored, for example, a 4 in everything, then that means you probably want to do revision on each part. Add some examples to what you have in your content. Make sure your organization has transitions. Each section, you want to take a look at what you're doing and make sure that you're addressing all of those concerns. So when you start off with your revision, think big. You don't want to start with the little minute parts. A lot of times students will get really hung up on, do I need a comma in this sentence? And while that is important, what's more important in revising is looking at the piece as a whole, because there might be some things that need some fine tuning even before you get to the little stuff. So look at things like the thesis statement, the length requirement. Do you have good evidence? Do you have enough examples? If you're scoring a 4 or lower, that probably means that some of this stuff needs to be addressed. More than likely, it's because you either need more example or you need more detailed examples than what you currently have. So look through all of these things on the Think Big list and give those a thought. Make some changes before you move to the next portion. And that's where you're going to think medium. And thinking medium means now I've looked at the essay as a whole. Now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to look at paragraph by paragraph. So look at the introduction. Does it really get somebody's attention, or is it just something you kind of threw on there because you didn't know what else to do? Well, work on it. Also, is the purpose for your writing really clear? Is this to entertain, inform, relate, or persuade? Make sure that that's apparent. Then look at each of the body paragraphs. Look to see if your paragraphs are making sense as far as, are they necessary, or is it something you can actually get rid of? Is there stuff that needs to be added, like more specific example? And are you transitioning throughout your paragraphs in the body? And then, of course, the conclusion, you can look at, does it end too abruptly? A lot of times essays do that, where it's just, I'm done writing and I don't know what else to do. But think about going back in and looking at what you could tie in from earlier in the essay and bring it in at the conclusion. Also, look at the tone. And that's something that is not just the conclusion, but overall, is this an essay that was supposed to be funny? Well, does it have that tone throughout? Is it something that's tackling a pretty serious issue? Well, you want to make sure that the tone does that as well. So thinking medium, looking at things kind of paragraph by paragraph and seeing what changes you might make. Then you want to think small. So this is literally sentence by sentence. Look at sentences that maybe are too long and they're kind of tough to understand. Are you varying that sentence structure so you don't have a constant barrage of, I went to the store, I bought bread, I made a sandwich? If everything's in the same structure, it gets really boring for a reader. You want to look at improving any language in your sentences. Is there language that's vague? Like if you use the word stuff or things, that's really vague. What exactly do you mean? If you're talking about it or they, do I know who you're really addressing, or do I know what it is? So look for things like that throughout the essay. And of course, then sentence by sentence, also look at grammar errors. So proofread each one of those sentences that you have now repaired. Then be picky, and be really picky. Picky like an editor picky. So that's pickier than a teacher. So look at, are all the words clear? Do you find yourself repeating things like I think, I believe, which you don't want to do? Ditch them. If you have used second person, get rid of it. Doesn't need to be in there. Are you spelling everything correctly? Are the pages numbered correctly? Does the physical appearance of your essay look like that sample MLA paper in OWL? And then is there anything else you can do to improve that draft? And what I often tell students is when you get to the picky part, that's when you hand it over to somebody. Now, don't hand it to somebody who's just going to be really nice and tell you it's a brilliant, wonderful essay, because it probably isn't. That's not a knock against you. It's just that most of us don't write absolutely beautiful, brilliant essays. So give it to someone who will really kind of take that editor's eye and who may be able to point out, yeah, you spelled this word wrong, or I have no idea what this sentence means. That's the stuff that you can get when you look a little bit picky. And then, of course, at the very end, you want to think about MLA. So obviously, if you are revising something like the narrative, there was no MLA citation that you had to have, but you still want to make sure the pages are numbered correctly, you have the title, the formatting is all correct. And then, of course, for any essay where you did use a source, make sure that you go and you double check it with OWL at Purdue, and that link is in the course resources module. And check that, make sure everything is A-OK as far as the works cited page and any in-text citation. And also in this module is a revision checklist that has all of this so that you can kind of take it, compare it with your paper side by side. And I can tell you probably one of the worst things I see when students do choose to do a revision is that they'll simply take a look at it, they'll go in and they'll fix a few commas, and that's it. And I can guarantee you, if that's all you're doing, that's not really a revision. It just means you went in and edited a little bit. So if your grade increases, it's probably only going to be a few points. If you want the grade to really increase, then take a look at those places in the essay where you scored 4 or lower, and look at this list and see how you can obviously repair it. Any questions that you have about essays that you are wanting to revise, you are more than welcome to send a message to me. Obviously, in class, we'll talk about these next week. And I'll show you a sample essay as well of a student who took a pretty lousy essay and turned it into something that was a really, really good essay. So we'll talk about that in the last week of classes. The revisions themselves are not due until December 3rd, which is the last week of class. So you do have some time to work on those if you need it. And any questions you got, just send them my way. So get revising. Hopefully, I'll be grading a few of those as we go into finals.